In this crypto update, I want to talk about Bitcoin and altcoins. Both are doing very well and present a couple articles why Bitcoin can continue much higher. Also, I want to bring back and talk about a project that I supported and covered back in 2017. This project has been hanging around, and kind of disappeared off people's radars, including mine. But now I want to bring it back because there's a lot of interesting things going for it, and I want to share a personal story about it as well. Lastly, I want to talk about this podcast between Jim Cramer, Mad Money Host, and Anthony Popliano. It's a very, very, very good one. All right, let's get started. Now, starting with Bitcoin, 10,700, certainly better than this past weekend and last week. So things are looking pretty good. That's because the broader market is also looking good. Looking at altcoins, same thing. They're following Bitcoin. BTC's dominance didn't really move. And you can see Bitcoin went up 4%, but Ethereum 4%, Binance Coin, which has been on a tear recently, 8%, Polkadot 8%, and Crypto.com, Cardano, Monero, Neo, and even DeFi like Yearn. Everyone is having a good day right now. So it's definitely looking pretty good. But is it going to get better? Well, according to these two articles, yes, much better. So Plan B and his stock to flow chart is still indicating that Bitcoin is on its way up to $100,000. And according to Plan B's latest tweet, to quote, "You see the jump in model value at the halving white line and corresponding drop in S2F multiple/model error white dots. Time to go up. The spikes, the white lines that spike up, that is when a halving event occurs." And you could see that after the halving event occurs, usually a price follows right afterwards. Not at the beginning, but afterwards. So even 2 bull cycles ago, you could see that after the halving event is when things started going up. But this last one from 2016 to 2017, you could see that the halving event occurred first, and then, nothing really happened, and you can see the dots are still red, and then it starts turning orange, and it starts going up in a big way. Right now, you could see it's really looking like that period from before, where yes, the halving event occurred, the price is not really moving, just slowly up. We got a lot of red, but it's starting to turn orange. And, once that happens, start going up. So according to Plan B and his stock to flow model, Bitcoin is still right on track and heading up to $100,000 in 2021. What about something more short term? Well, according to CoinDesk, there's a lot of traders that's buying Bitcoin options at $36,000 for Bitcoin at year end. If stock to flow is correct and the dots start turning orange and Bitcoin starts going up. For it to go to 100,000 in 2021, Bitcoin does have to make some moves for the remaining of this year. So can Bitcoin possibly triple, let's just say from 11,000, 12,000 up to 36,000 by year end? It seems like there's not enough time for that, but who knows? Next, I want to talk about a project that I covered in 2017. I was a big supporter of this project. Is actually when I first started CryptosRUs and my insider program. This was one of the very first ICOs I covered at that time. So some of you guys that have been following me from 2017, you may recognize the project and you may have invested in this ICO. If you did, you'll be happy that you did. But recently I started scrolling, I'm noticing that there's a lot of changes on CMC, especially the top 100, right? I know a lot of you guys are noticing that if you've been scrolling through. And one project caught my eye at number 79, and they're called Arweave. So if you click into it, you might not recognize it. You're like, Arweave? What is that, right? So let me bring it up. So what is Arweave? Well, look at their website, store data permanently. Arweave enables you to store documents and applications forever. Arweave makes information permanence sustainable. Welcome to PermaWeb. So what Arweave is trying to do, and this has been their mission since 2017, is to create an internet that is archived, and will be stored forever without any concerns about modifications or changes. They're basically trying to create a Wayback Machine. You know, some of you guys know this website, Wayback Machine, which basically archives the net. That's what Arweave is trying to do, but in a decentralized manner, in a transparent manner, and in a manner where once things are written, they can't be changed, right? And this is very important for a lot of reasons. But building beyond that, Arweave is also working with other developers, and just because it's an open source project, there's a lot of people contributing. But with this, you can build a number of things on top of it. So data storage is one. Storage is a big thing. Also, email. So you think about it. How important is it that you archive your email, right? So there's a lot of things that's being built on Arweave, and it's actually a very exciting project right now. But you may be thinking, George, Arweave didn't exist in 2017. They're a relatively new project, right? No, that's because they rebranded themselves. Back in 2017, they were called ArcChain. Now, I don't know if this rings a bell because, again, I talked about them very early on, I would say about September-ish in 2017, one of the very first projects I covered. And same thing. That's what they were concentrating on then, and that's what they're concentrating on now. And the irony is I'm bringing this website, their old page up on Wayback Machine. This is what I'm talking about. And they're actually working with Wayback Machine. They're actually taking all the archive from Wayback Machine and they're putting on Arweave right now. So it's very, very interesting. But this is what it is. They haven't changed their mission statement at all. And I think that's a very good thing. So after a few months, they decided to rebrand. So this is the reason why some of you guys have lost track of ArcChain or you don't recognize Arweave. It's because in February 2018, so only a few months later, they decided to change their name from ArcChain to Arweave. And the reason stated was because there was too many projects that sounded the same, like R-Chain and A-Chain. So they just went with Arweave. But the token, AR, didn't change. And the denomination didn't change. Nothing changed. There was no need for a swap or anything. If you look at Arweave now, each token is at about $4.50. They recently ran up as high as $6, $7, $7.40. And now they kind of settled down. You know, usually when you see extreme pump, right, it kind of settles down a little bit above halfway. That's what they are, about $4.50. And that's looking pretty good. Their market cap is now at 148 million. Let's round up 150 million, rank 78. And I was shocked when I saw this. I'm like, wow, they really have been climbing, and I really haven't been paying attention. So looking at their pre-sale price, each ARC at that time was being sold for 9 cents. And then after that, it went up to 14 cents, and there was like a pre-sale bonus, but you could have bought things for very cheap back then. Oh, you even see my old logo there. So yeah, I mean, look at this. You could buy 100,000 for 9,000, 3,270, 1,090, but ultimately it was like 9 cents, right? And there was different rewards for each one. I was doing the math. 9 cents to 450, that's roughly 50x. 50x from an ICO. So this is one of the projects that actually survived and is now doing very well. So those of you guys that have invested, congratulations. I myself found some old tokens that has been sitting in the wallet for the last 2 years untouched. So I'm also very happy that I invested. But just so you guys know, there's a wallet called Upvest. That's the wallet that the Arweave partner up with in terms of getting your AR tokens. They're decommissioning it. And they're no longer going to be supporting Arweave going forward. So Arweave and Upvest both recommend you to move your AR tokens off ASAP to Arweave's own native wallet. So please do so because you only have until the end of September to be able to do that. After that, I don't know what happens. You have to create a ticket. It might get complicated. So if you did invest and you have some AR tokens within the Upvest wallet, make sure you move it out right away. Otherwise, it might get stuck or lost and you don't want to do that. I found this too. Arweave, after their ICO and after the pre-sale ICO and everything else, right? They attracted some very good investors. Andreessen, Horowitz, Union Square Ventures, and Coinbase Ventures, they all invested in Arweave. $8.3 million. And that's earlier this year. That's March of this year. So that's a pretty big deal. These are three of the biggest investing companies out there involved with crypto, and they have invested a ton of money into Arweave. And looking at their blog, Arweave just conducted a demo day, open web incubator. So there's a lot going on. If you look through these apps, pretty good ones like decentralized storage or one-click deploy, online communities, profit sharing, ID services. There's a lot of things going on with Arweave. Arweave is not really on a really big or popular exchange at this point, yet they're still going up. So imagine if they do get on a reputable exchange, and that's when I started digging. Remember, Coinbase Ventures is an investor in Arweave, right? And looking at this blog post from June 10th, Coinbase continues to explore support for new digital assets. And guess what? Which one came up? Arweave. So they're already looking at listing Arweave in the future. So if Arweave gets listed on Coinbase in the near future, that is going to be a big thing. Big thing. Because right now, there's just not a lot of good exchanges to get it. But later on, if they're listed on Coinbase, man, that's going to be very, very big for them. So that's my kind of like recent broad overview of Arweave and ArcChain. It's one of the projects I'm glad that I supported and invested in, and there's been many within the last 3 years that have pretty much died off and equated to nothing, but I'm glad to see this one actually worked out. Now, lastly, I want to talk about this podcast because this is the most epic podcast or episode of a podcast I've ever heard that discusses Bitcoin. Anthony Pomp, normally, the only guy he debates with is Peter Schiff, and it just goes nowhere, right? Anthony will say his thing, Peter will disagree, and it just goes on and on and on. Nothing ever comes from it. It's become a point where it's just a joke. But this is no joke. This podcast is with Jim Cramer, host of CNBC Mad Money. Right now, some of you guys like Jim. Some of you guys don't. He has made some bad calls in the past, like Bear Stearns. I know that. But overall, this guy has been involved with stocks, involved with hedge funds, involved with a lot of things for a very long time, like 40 decades, or 4 decades, not 40 decades. But Jim is totally clueless on Bitcoin, right? He has made some statements about Bitcoin before on air, but it's clear that he really does not understand Bitcoin. And he recently talked with Anthony Pomp. Now, this is a 70-minute podcast. At the beginning, they were just talking about random stuff. And somehow Jim talked about Dave Portnoy and started asking Pomp about it. And it led to a full-blown discussion about Bitcoin. And you could tell Jim was really taking it in. And by the end, he agrees he needs to own Bitcoin. And I just want to play a very small snippet of this. The reason why Jim Cramer now wants to look at things like Bitcoin, because before he even said, yeah, okay, whatever, right? It's not for me. But now he's changed his tune because of one very important reason. Take a listen.
Again, before what happened, before the pandemic, I would have had a nice conversation with you. Oh, Bitcoin's kind of interesting. Yeah, it's not for me. I think that what really changed my mind was my daughter, my 26-year-old, saying, "Hey, Dad, how are we going to pay for $3 trillion?" And, but it was one of those questions. It wasn't like, how are we going to pay for $3 trillion? It was like, no, Dad, how are we going to pay? And I looked at her and I said, well, we're going to have to raise taxes. She goes, but Dad, what are you going to, there's not enough money if you raise taxes. So what happens? And I said, well, we don't know what happens. And she goes, but Dad, you're the guy. And I said, I'm not the guy. I have an idea, which is not a good idea about what will happen, which is bad. And she said, well, what can I do? And that's when I said, listen, we're going to get you a house, get you some gold. And I did. I got it a beach house. I mean, all of these are designed for what I regard. It's not going to be apocalypse. It's just going to be not good.
Yeah.
And I want to hedge against not good.
What I love about this podcast is Jim Cramer comes off as completely sincere, as someone that really wants to learn, and someone that's really fearful. So this is not like him on Mad Money or CNBC, where he always has to have that front, right? Where I know it all. You need to trust me, right? I know what I'm doing. I know everything. If you're on TV, you have to do that, right? You have to portray confidence. Otherwise, why would people listen to you? But if you listen to this, he says a lot of very sincere things like, I don't know anything about Bitcoin. I don't care if I look like an idiot because I'm here to learn. And then he also shares his concerns about the $3 trillion, the stimulus package that basically was printed out of thin air. He says he believes that inflation is coming. He says he believes he's being reckless for the first time in his career due to the $3 trillion. He believes owning stocks and cash is being reckless. So, of course, I'm not playing the whole thing, but I am linking this. So I'm putting in a comment, pinning it to the first comment of this video and also in the description. Listen to it. Start around the 24-minute mark, 25 minutes. Otherwise, at the beginning, there's just a lot of nonsense. Whether you like it, you don't, I don't really care for it. So I start around 25 minute mark. That's when they start talking about Bitcoin. Pomp does such a good job to stay objective, right? Not to come off too much as like a perma bull. He explains it rationally, and I love Jim opening up, not sounding like he knows everything, or he's just arguing against everything, or he doesn't believe in everything. He has a complete open mind, and I love it. And listen to Jim. He's actually really fearful. And he can't say that. He can't say those kind of things on air, but he's admitting it in this podcast, and I love it. So take a listen and leave your thoughts afterwards. So to conclude, Bitcoin and altcoins are doing pretty good, but I presented some cases why Bitcoin will go much higher. Arweave is looking pretty good as well. I'm glad that I covered this project, and hopefully some of you guys did invest. And if you didn't, make sure you pay attention, because I do think they have a lot going for them. And finally, listen to that podcast from Pomp with Jim Cramer. It's an eye-opener. Most of you guys may know what Pomp is talking about already, but I love that podcast episode. You should really listen to it. All right, leave your thoughts in the comments below, and as always, hit the like and subscribe to the channel if you are new, and stay tuned to my future videos. Take care, guys. Bye-bye.